So inequality is interesting, but a more difficult question is how much should we have, or how little should we have? I can't emphasize this point enough. Economics has a wide diversity of political opinions and a wide diversity of moral values. But even the most redistributive, the most communist economist himself, Mr. Karl Marx and his friend Friedrich Engels, opposed perfect equality. This is a letter from Engels in 1875, and it reads, "The elimination of all social political inequality, rather than the abolition of all class distinctions, is similarly a most dubious expression." So here he is against the elimination of all social and political inequality, but rather in favor of a more narrow abolition of class distinction. He notes that living conditions will always exhibit a certain inequality which may be reduced, but never wholly eliminated. The concept of a socialist society as a realm of equality is a one-sided French concept derived from the old liberty, equality, fraternity. This produces nothing but mental confusion. And Marx spells his argument out somewhat more technically. It makes no sense to speak of equality in the abstract. We always have to think of equality in what? For x to equal y is for them to equal in a particular concrete aspect. We have to measure it in some tangible way. And so he proposed a hypothetical in 3 questions. If we want equality of hourly wages, that means we might not have equality in total income. Okay, well, if we want equality in total income, then it follows we'd have to have equality in total hours. So now we're restricting the amount of hours someone can work. We're saying everybody has to have the same hourly pay, and therefore you will have the same income for all in the end. But nevertheless, what about those with many children and those without? If everybody's earning the same income, and some people have a bunch of kids, those without can live relatively more lavishly, take better vacations, have nicer furniture. In short, it's a bit of a straw man to say we want perfect equality. Then the question becomes, in what aspect can we try and become more equal? Maybe we should simply use the equality of opportunity. So if everyone has the same opportunity to begin with, all subsequent inequality will simply be a matter of choice or luck. Regardless of how we feel about inequality at the top, universally folks are cared about eliminating poverty. Since the 1960s, the United States has been measuring an official rate of poverty. This was part of LBJ's War on Poverty, and the official rate is simply a reflection of the labor market. It does not include government aid such as food stamps or Medicaid. The War on Poverty in the 1960s expanded assistance to the poor to help alleviate suffering. So while there's been some progress in the official poverty rate since that period, this is reflecting the gradual improvement in productivity and wages at the bottom of the income distribution. For the past 40 years, there hasn't been much progress. We can see this on the black line. However, once we incorporate the benefit from food stamps, tax credits, and other transfers, we can see that the absolute standard of living for those in the bottom has dramatically improved. In red, the absolute full income poverty rate has plummeted to less than 2% today. It's still not zero. There's more work to be done, but we have had tremendous success from these programs along the way. So there are 2 broad categories to measure poverty: absolute poverty and relative poverty. Absolute poverty is going to use a fixed measuring stick, an absolute standard of living. How much calories do you have in the day? What's the quality of clothing you're wearing? How many square feet are in your home per person? Can you get access to an x-ray or other specific measures of healthcare? As general prosperity moves along, the share of the population in poverty can change. And this absolute measure is really good at comparing between time periods. So take this gentleman, King Henry VIII from the 1500s. Is he richer than you? Or are you richer than him? Number 1, he probably has more expensive clothing than you and I could afford. That's real gold and real gemstones he's wearing. He has a much bigger house than we do, multiple houses, including Windsor Castle. But does he have a flushing toilet? I mean, he's got servants that take away his poop or something. But would you rather have a poo servant or a flushing toilet that you can do in private, with running water and soap afterwards? And modern plumbing is just too good. In other aspects, we are far richer in our access to information. The university library is far better than any library he had access to, and with a little bit of time and effort, we can have access to nearly the entire breadth of human knowledge. We fly in airplanes. We can communicate across the globe in an instant. We can take public transportation or a private vehicle and drive at speeds he couldn't even dream of. But yet, King Henry VIII was the richest person in England in his time. None of us will have the power or influence that he had had. Relative poverty acknowledges the society you currently live in. This would simply say the poorest quintile. There are always someone who's going to be at the bottom of a distribution, and it automatically is going to adjust with economic growth. It's very useful for understanding current levels. I have a picture of a cell phone here because in the modern world, a cell phone is no longer a luxury. You can't get a job without a cell phone. You need an email address and access to the internet simply to function in our modern world. And while this cell phone makes us absolutely richer than King Henry VIII, in relative terms, a basic cell phone is a need, no longer a want in our current society. Both of these matter. We care about relative dignity. In ancient Rome, everybody's wearing a bedsheet and that's fine. But if you go in the modern world and walk around with a bedsheet, it's hard to stay dignified. Part of the equation of maximizing human happiness is maintaining a relative material standard of living and dignity for all those in society. Adam Smith in The Wealth of Nations in 1776 made the following observation. Custer has rendered leather shoes a necessary of life in England. The poorest creditable person of either sex would be ashamed to appear in public without them. However, in Scotland, it is not to the same order for women, who many, without any discredit, walk about barefoot. And even today, the 20th century libertarian economist Friedrich Hayek worried about the security of a given standard of life or of the relative position which one person or group enjoys compared with others.